1 o'clock sharp. So we have the next company presenting, and I'm pretty sure that all the audience is aware of this company. THQ Nordic, it has been a rocket on the stock market. So I welcome Stefan LJUNGQVIST, the creative director and head of Experiment 101, and Lars Wingefors. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars Ola. It's a pleasure being here again. I'm Lars Wingefors. I'm the group CEO and company founder of THQ Nordic. I will just run through very briefly about THQ Nordic, then Stefan will present, and then I will give you a bit more color on a transaction we made last week. So THQ Nordic in brief. We are a small but global games publisher within video games and hardcore PC games. Currently, as of today, we engage more than 1,600 people and has 10 in-house development studios. However, just to give you a brief, I started out in the industry 25 years ago. Actually, this summer, I might have a celebration with my old friends from Värmland, with mail order business. And been through the verticals of mail order, retail, wholesale, distribution, been acquired, went bankrupt, have venture capitalists. But the last 14 years I've been on my own with my management, Eric and well, a few others. The journey with THQ Nordic started 2011. So it has been a learning process since then. You know, we started the acquisition, setting up a 50,000 krona lagerblog and acquiring the assets of the public listed Juwood, which were an Austrian games publisher. And since then we made now 29 acquisitions. I think 2013 was a moment when we acquired a catalog from the publisher THQ Inc. that were Nasdaq listed, and there were some headlines in the game industry. I took one here. Who the fuck is Nordic Games? Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. I think still until last week, we made this IPO and I had a strategy of, okay, we keep it in Sweden. Yeah, it was hard last week to keep it in Sweden. Yeah, so. Now, internationally, people have been reaching out to me a bit more from the industry and investors, yeah. So it's a bit new ball game, yeah, which is fun, yeah. It's a learning process again, yeah. So a bit of the KPIs. Started very small. You don't see the first year here, but since 2014, we increased the revenues from 178 million to over 500 million last year. And the EBIT increased from 68 to 188. We had a stable growth. And the IPO, most of you are probably aware of it, but we made it together with Pareto, my friends close by here, and we raised 240 million at First North in November 22nd at post money 1.4 billion. And it was important for me to have the right owners on board, and I'm really happy that a few of you are also in here today. Yeah? And last September, I decided rather than borrowing money to make acquisitions, I want the money in my pocket. Yeah. So we raised 600 million with Carnegie. I'm sorry, Pareto. From institutions at a higher share price valuation. And then kind of made the soft promise to make further acquisitions, and then we made an acquisition last week. Yeah. And the ownership structure, the company is still owned by largely myself and Eric, but also the rest of the management are owners, and we have 2 co-founders that are actually running 2 other businesses that also on the list. Yeah. But I'm very happy to have long-term investors, and I really appreciate having them on board. You know, this has been an 18 months, you know, journey on the stock market. Yeah, but I have a 25 years horizon. Yeah. Another 25 years. So for the company, it's important to have a stable ownership base. Yeah? So Swedbank, Handelsbanken, Didner Gerge, Skandia, and Martin Larsson, and Lundström, and many others. So yeah, that's the brief. I'm very excited to welcome Stefan LJUNGQVIST, a real talent. Yeah, he's a unicum. Yeah, I would say. And why, he will tell you, yeah?
Okay, bear with me. I'm going to switch computer and hope for everything works. Oh, okay, so I'm Stefan LJUNGQVIST. Like Lars said, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. But first of all, I'm here to talk about Biomutant, which is an original IP, kind of difficult in today's market to create, as we have heard other presenters talk about today. CD Projekt just recently, which makes awesome games. But a few of us in this room might not be super aware of what this is. So let's start with a short trailer. Okay, so I've been doing games for quite some time, like Lars was saying. So I started on Spectrum 48K, so that means that we have 48 kilobytes of memory. That's kind of different to what we have accessible today, but that's where I started. I went through a phase also on the Commodore 64. Some of you are old enough, I think, to remember these machines. I'm 45, just turned 45 in December. But my claim to fame back then was on the Atari ST. So I was part of one of the most notorious piracy groups in the world. But more importantly, we made demos. So that's how we actually, how I learned to, master a few things in terms of game development, how you treat graphics in development, because it's kind of hard to balance that from an artistic and technical point of view. So I'm from an artist family, but I started coding assembler. But my friends quite soon told me that my patience is not so good for coding, but it learned me systematic structure. So I also have a couple of dogs. That's why I put them up there. You say that you are like your dogs, and Boston Terriers are among the most energetic dogs. So maybe that's something true in there. I'm also a Sanshu aficionado. So if you know Sanshu, it's full contact kung fu. So you see a little bit about, if you saw the trailer, there are some connections there. So I trained 15 years, which one for a monk from the Shaolin Temple. But obviously, I don't do that anymore. 4 years ago, I separated 2 discs, so I cannot do it anymore. I'm a writer as well. I wrote 7 books that was released in 7 countries. And I'm also an avid gamer still. So I play a lot of games. So what am I doing? I work and head up a studio called Experiment 101. We are only working on Biomutant. Making a great game is really, really tough. So we're focusing on that. The studio is quite small. We are only 20 people. And you will see in the next slide why this is important. So I made the decision 4 years ago that this would be the last time I founded a new studio. And I'm really happy so far to say that it's working according to plan. Studio was founded in 2015, summer of 2015, with only 3 people. So the original prototype for Biomutant was made by 3 people, so me and 2 others, in 3 months. And this is a little bit part of the development philosophy that we are running, and that really try to emphasize on, that you don't have to be 600 people or 300 people to make a good game. You have to have the right people. But in order to explain a little bit more of that, so when I say 20 years, that's kind of when we started the first studio. So I've been doing 5 startups, been part of building those studios. I helped build Avalanche Studios. I was part of that journey from the beginning. Fantastic journey we had, and they still enjoy that. They're still my best friends. I left 4 years ago. I sold my little share. The reasons for that are I wanted to go back to hands-on development. Like I said, I'm an artist. I can animate. I also play music. So I understand a little bit about the actual process of making games. But that said, I'm also an entrepreneur. So why did I decide to do that? Yeah, to take control over my own destiny and the super talented developers that I have been fortunate enough to work with. So far, I worked on about 8 what you call AAA games, primarily then at Avalanche. We worked with the big publishers. Obviously, Square Enix, it's a relationship that is ongoing since about 15 years for one of the most famous game series that I worked on, and I was part of co-creating from the beginning. So on this game, I was a studio art director, so kind of the visual fidelity and how the game looks, how it feels. It's partly because of me, but it's a huge group of people, right, working on these games. We also came up with the brilliant idea to start in New York. So we built a studio there in the central New York. It's about a little bit more than 100 people right now. So that's also a reason I left, because I was always on an airplane, always in a meeting room. And we also did this game together with another huge publisher, Warner Brothers. And they're on the West Coast, so I spend a lot of time there. And like I said, I thought that my journey with this fantastic studio came to a conclusion. So we kind of moved on then to start a new venture. And originally it was me and my colleague who were talking about actually going back to make an RPG. Because funny enough, I used to work 4.5 years before I started my own studio in video game development for Target Games, or Äventyrsspel, which is actually today Paradox. So this is more than 20 years ago when we made a paper RPG, collectible card games. So I worked a lot with that. I have a deep understanding on the real mechanics behind Hearthstone or Gwent, how that actually works with collation card and everything. So we wanted to go and make a real RPG for video games, which I never had the opportunity to do. And I also wanted to go back after Mad Max to do a colorful game. For me, that's really important. And to have something that is imaginative and stands out, because it's really hard in this day's market. I say that it's really tough to make a great game, but also you heard Starby say that 7,000 games came out on Steam last year alone. So you also have to reach out, right? So there's a development philosophy that I'm constantly trying to push. It's the right to exist. So we don't try to do a Me Too game. We try to do something that adds something new. It doesn't have to be a visual style, but you have to have something that makes the gamer enthusiastic and really want to bet their money on your game to try it out. And this is what we try to do with Biomutant. But it's also a homage to kind of back in the days when a game could just be a really good game. And I think if you look at Nintendo, Breath of the Wild, the new Zelda game, they constantly keep doing this. they're seeing games as games. So I got the question quite a lot in interviews. I'm doing a lot of interviews since last summer when we announced Biomutant. So one of the things that I've said, if the world needs another shooter with an angry white man with a M16, we are not going to do it. So we want to try to have, we have a motto in this studio that it should be weird in a good way. So, and it's also a little bit whimsical. So I want to show you something that we just showed in London this weekend, because people always ask about gameplay. And we had the first trailer made in CGI because that was part of the creation of the assets. And that's actually the assets that we're using in game. So it's not so far off. But I want to show you the sizzle trailer, which is gameplay. And from now on, we're always only showing gameplay. Yeah, so everything you see there is created internally also in the studio by 20 people. So there's no outsourcing, we control everything. A lot of us are multidisciplinary, so we can do a lot of things, but obviously we have some people that are specialized in different areas. So this is all gameplay PS4 version. So obviously the game is an open world RPG coming out for PC, PS4 and Xbox One. Sometime when we are done. I put a few quotes here. These are just a few quotes. I put in Forbes there because of the financial scenario here today. But we got so much great media. We were kind of overwhelmed from the Gamescom announcement, and super proud to be working with Lars and the team at THQ, who really gave us the opportunity to be part in a big way of presenting our product at Gamescom and moving forward. There was like 7 trade shows that we did. And also that concluded with us becoming part of the THQ family, which I'm really happy about. So I'm also a shareholder, which has been fantastic and will continue to be fantastic. So what people are saying about the game here is very important because it seems to be unique and stand out. And that's really hard. Like, we are not the Me Too game. We are not the shooter. In that sense. I mean, you can do original shooters, maybe sometime in the future you will look at that, but we're not trying to do something that are similar to other projects, and that's why I also think that we have an opportunity to stand out, and people that are interested are probably going to stay with us for quite some time, which is what I hope. So Lars asked me to talk a little bit about the game. I hope I have time. So I just want to show you a little bit why I think this is unique and why this is a little bit whimsical. So this is a character design that we kind of make, that we made originally. I got a lot of questions. Oh, is he a raccoon or is he a panda? What is he? I also got an Australian journalist saying, obviously you can figure out what kind of animal he thought it was. But for me, it's important to say, and we didn't show this a lot until this weekend, that you can actually really influence the way that this character looks like, as you see here. So from now on, we internally call it a Muppet. So you can make a furry mammal. And if you see on the right, left-hand side for me here, left-hand side for you, I'm now choosing color of the fur, which is nice. You can customize it in any way you will. But more importantly, that also changes the stats of the character. So if you look at it as an RPG, you see also on the right-hand side that you have full stats, full attributes. So when we go back now, because the video is looping, you see that there's a DNA wheel on the left-hand side. So if I want to make a smart character, I just move it towards that side. I get more intelligence. So if you look at it from a fantasy perspective, I become more like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. Smarter, I can use more mental abilities, more X-Men abilities. If I'm stronger, you get bigger arms, etc. I think you get the idea. So, and this is still just a limited wheel. So there will be a lot of customization. You can also play as a female, which is kind of important for us. Another big thing that we have gotten a lot of positive feedback is the crafting. When we calculated for ranged weapons, how many combinations you can do, we only did that after first year, was about 500,000 combinations. And as you see here, here's a random, I'm just displaying what you could possibly do. In the real game, people are finding these parts and putting together the weapon themselves. So that's also part of the open world thing. You can see you can do numerous weapons. And what you do is like you can wield single-handed, dual single-handed, or two-handed, and there's a way for you to dictate how that weapon shoots. Shotgun style, assault rifle style, etc. You can also obviously do melee weapons, and you can create all kinds of crazy weapons. For the demo, I put in a small pencil that you write with, and I gave it huge stats. So people were really surprised that it was actually a really viable thing in demoing, completing the demo. All of these also have a fix. As you see here, this green thing makes the enemies puke and also creates a little bit of damage. It's also in a fun way. The game is called Biomutant for a reason. You can mutate your character. It's not only what I showed you in the beginning, but you can get physical mutations like big crab pinchers on your back, etc. Mutated tail that you can use. You also have psionic abilities then, which is kind of the X-Men abilities. He's going to show you a few of these. So here's like a gel bubble. You might think of it as a force field, but remember what I said. We always try to do whimsical things. So if you combine, this is now reflecting bullets upon these guys. But if you combine it, for example, with something like levitate, and you have that bubble around you, what happens when you release and start bouncing with that gel bubble? So for us, it's about player creativity. And remember that I worked on games like Just Cause. So we're trying to give you what we call a creative toolbox that you can combine and interrupt states at any time. So here you see telekinesis. So I can levitate, go to telekinesis, levitate with something I lifted, be in the bubble, and there's a lot of these different kinds of mutations. We also have something called bionics, which are kind of prosthetic reinforcements that you give to your character. So in this case, I have some gliding wings, and I also have a bionic bow. And I think we are the only game that came up with a crazy idea that you could be able to catch the arrow after you shoot it. So I'm actually doing that right here, and I create a climb spot on a mountain wall. And why is this important? The world that we have created is quite large. So we want to provide a player with different means of traversing or exploring and finding out new things, personal discoveries in this big world. Obviously, there are also things like a power fist. You have to put it in. Yo Mad, who works on Darksiders, made Battle Chasers, which also one of the characters has a power fist. Made a big impact on me back in the days, and maybe there's some connection, I don't know. Lastly, and I think most important for us, is something that we call free flow combat. So it's an action RPG, so you are using a lot of action in this game. We have got a lot of questions on the influences for this. I'm just going to show you something that one of the animators did here. He's bouncing on mushrooms while shooting the bow to attract, to shoot away an enemy, doing a grappling hook to push himself towards that enemy, jump up in the air and shooting. So what we mean with free flow is that you're never interrupted or stopped as a player. And if you get the opportunity to try our game, which a lot of people has done so far, they immediately get the feeling that this is a quite easy game to get into, and it's super rewarding just to play the original combat. And then you can add all of the different layers. I just explained a few of them with the mental powers on top of this layer. So it has a really smooth feeling to the game. That's very briefly on Biomutant. It's quite of a big game, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. And I think we have 3 minutes for question, according to Lars here, to Stefan. So I asked the audience first, and I know we have a skillful questionnaire here in the audience. Will you start, Jacob?
What was the creative process before you came up with the idea? How long before it took you the 3 months for the prototype? How long was the thought process?
You mean to come to where we are right now? Oh, okay, the idea. Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have so many ideas. I say that's the least of our problems. I mean, the challenge is to execute upon them. So that's the journey we're on right now, and to complete the game. So I think I dream a lot. That's what I get. But also, I'm fortunate enough to have the ability to visualize it. And I think that's really important. And I'm working together now with 20 extremely talented people. All of them are handpicked. So I was a mentor at the university after I left Avalanche, started meeting really brilliant people. And we've never hired someone that just applied. So we're trying to make sure that we have the best fit. So again, it's not about the number of people, it's about finding the right people. We don't have any other directors than me. And by I mean with director, it's more like, you know, in film, it's not like the boss. And we don't have leads or producers or meetings. If we have a meeting, it's impromptu, where we actually, so I kind of set the direction, and I call it the box, because we have to have boundaries, and then we develop inside that box. So we moved away from 200-page design document. I did a lot at Avalanche, also experimented with this, only video, for example. A big project that I led for one of the world's largest publishers, I only did video documentation, where I explained then the creative vision behind each element of the game instead of writing. So when I came to visit them in the US, people's like, oh, hey, how are you? Like 40 people in a day. I don't know them, but they have been listening to and seeing videos of me for 80 hours. So of course they have some relation with me. But I think for us, it's more about prototype. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough, I can see how it looks like in my head as a film, but I never met anyone who is able actually to foresee how it feels, which is most important. It's a tricky question, and I think it's very individual from each creator to another.
I was at the Gamescom when you released it, and I actually went over to the public booth, and there were some Ubisoft developers playing it, and there was, damn, this is good, and this is unique, and it's a really extremely cool combat system. Is it some games you have got your inspiration from, or is it all just your dreams over the nights? Or can we compare Biomutant to something? Is it any RPG game that has as advanced combat system as Biomutant? I
mean, structurally, the game is more similar to Zelda, Breath of the Wild, for example, than to Horizon Dawn. In terms of combat, you have games like Devil May Cry, for example. Somebody said, oh, it has a little bit of Dark Souls. I don't know what they see in that. Also, like old games like Ratchet and Clank that just focused on the fun factor. So it's like a hybrid of influences that have created what I think is a unique feel, like they picked up on too. So I don't think that we looked inspiration-wise to copy anything. Like the goal was from the beginning to have a free flow system. If you don't play a lot of games, maybe that doesn't make sense. But a lot of games has kind of you have to do 2 attacks and then you're locked, and becomes kind of frustrating, I think, especially in today's climate and the way that people interact with games today, especially in combat.
And the final question, so my 3-4 minutes is up. Expansion packs, I guess
we're going to focus on completing this game.
Okay. And the final...
Wrong question.
And the final for me, what's the best thing, except being a shareholder in THQ, about joining THQ?
I mean, we have a similar mindset. Super people to work with. I mean, like I said, I spend a lot of time with everyone in from Vienna, also in Karlstad from November onwards. But also, like I said, we started working together in February of last year. So it's been a very, I mean, I worked with all of the big publishers. I've been doing this for quite some time, and this has been the best relationship I had with a business partner. Hence, that's why we sold the studio as well, to become part of this family for real.
You helped us the acquisition last week. You did some really good jobs, Stefan.
Yeah, so I also thank you. I'm also trying to help from a developer, entrepreneur, studio point of view with some analysis, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Lars.
Tack, Stefan.
Maybe yeah.
I'm really glad to have you and the team on board. Yeah, I think you are growing every day and surprises me. Yeah, and deliver on the expectations. Yeah, it's amazing. So I will just talk you a very short version of the acquisition we made last week. Koch Media is a company I've been doing business with for many years, yeah, 10, 15 years. They are entrepreneurially, founded business that are all across Europe. And I know, obviously, not only the founder and CEO, Clemens, but also, for example, here in Stockholm is my old main guy that I used to have had employed like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, so there is cross links. Yeah? The story, as usual, we start doing business because then it's easier to the organizations to get to know each other. So we started doing the partner publishing business with them in Germany, Benelux, and Italy. We signed a contract. And the first release was Elix in October. And during the dinner, I actually threw out, can't we do something more? And then I visited the Volition just before E3, and then, he opened up the business for us, and then kind of, I made up my mind, and then myself and Eric went down to the owner together with Clemens, and we sat down for a few hours and we told his story about because he was an entrepreneur from the Alps, yeah, and in music. I told my story, and then we kind of agreed. Yeah. And then I engaged a lot of advisors, because when you're public listed, people want to have Engslen and Livrem, and So I spent a lot of millions on that, yeah. They spent 3,000 euros, they told me. Yeah? Because my advisors wanted the overview on the accounts. Yeah. Yeah. So the KPIs on the businesses. THQ Nordic, we are much, in terms of revenue, smaller, but on the KPI side we are bigger. I would say it's two different kind of publishers. We are more small in the very small overhead, but we are pumping out a lot of content. Yeah, they are a AAA publisher in a way. They have a huge marketing team, structures. Much bigger projects. They have now they implemented what they call a stage gate process that Stefan knows all about. That the big guys having how to make a AAA project, etc. So in total now we are 10 dev studios. We have another 26 working for us. We had 91 IPs before, and they had 15, but their IPs are much bigger. So in total we have over 100. And in total we have over 50 game development projects in pipeline, yeah? Whereof 17 are announced. So, and also the headcount, engaged people we had 460 and they have 1181, yeah, so we're over 1600. In terms of revenues, they are also a lot bigger, and the adjusted EBIT, they were also bigger. However, the real money making, well, they made money for 20 years, but last year they made the first loss ever because of they had a flop failure. Yeah? That's a big business risk. Yeah? You invest a lot of money and it doesn't work out. Yeah? So the high-level construction I used the money I raised, 66 million and a bit more. And then rather than having an earn-out, which I didn't want to have it for various reasons, we agreed to a reverse, a loan of 16 million with no interest, and then mainly Clemens got shares, the founder and CEO, and then also the other owner that owned the absolute majority also actually got some shares. So that's my personal aim, to have him to buy more shares. Yeah. And then the dilution of the deal then for the shareholders becoming 1.2%. So the enterprise value being 121 million end of December. And the deal was closed just a few hours later. So now I have 2 Clemens and actually 2 Reinhardts, both Austrians. However, the new Clemens, or Kundratwitz, is running it from Munich, and my old Clemens are running it from Vienna. Well, I'll come back to this. Yeah. Here's a bit of the history. They founded the business really kind of same year, almost that I founded my business. 94, they founded Koch Media, entered the games market, founded Deep Silver year 2002. They had added film. They had a good position, so they had a 300 million turnover first time 2009, and then they had the first really big success IP, which were Dead Island, that were developed by Techland in Poland. Yeah. And then 2013, as myself, they acquired, but they were with the big guys in the auction, the first auction of THQ Inc., acquiring Saints Row and Metro and the Volition studio south of Chicago. And then the year after, they actually acquired Crytek UK, that had acquired Homefront from THQ as well. Yeah. So, in order to present this in a good way, we decided to present as 3 business areas. This company is all linked together, so it's not 3 companies, but it's 1 company and the daughter companies, but 3 business areas in order for you to understand better. So you have what is very similar to THQ Nordic, that's what we call games, Deep Silver mainly. It's 68 million euros turnover last year. And to be honest, they are really built to deliver a lot more than that, yeah. So they have a lot of people working centrally and in development. And then you have partner publishing, which they have a market-leading position. And they are really good at this. They've done this, for 20 years, and it's very well managed. It's SAP business system across everything. They have a very good control of it. They work with 50 publishing partners. I would say a good number of the Japanese partners, such as Sega, Capcom, Square Enix, Atlas, and others, but also European partners such as Codemasters and others. So long-standing relationships Clemens and his team having with these companies. And I communicated, it has been growing a bit the past years. I see it stable for the future over what I could see. and I really like the business because I know it. Yeah, it's my own background. Yeah. And obviously there is synergies for THQ Nordic in theory. However, I stated we make no synergies promises at all. Yeah, but one synergies could be that THQ Nordic are using partner publishing business area. And then they have a film business, which is it's a learning process, yeah, but it's nice and profitable in a way, but it's very niche in only Germany and Italy. Bit more on the Volition. That's the biggest game development studio. 20 years, founded 20 years ago. Started out with Decent, Free Space. They made Summoner, that THQ that we owned before, and Red Faction that we owned before. Punisher that Disney has, and then they made this hugely successful Saints Row IP series. So I'm coming back to Saints Row, and then after doing this Saints Row for many years, when Clemens acquired it, the team, well, that's a story I got. They wanted to do something new, presented this huge game. However, it ended up 4 or 5 years later with the release of Agents of Mayhem, and it didn't really work out commercially. I think the fans wanted a new Saints Row, and that Saints Row is a major franchise. Yeah, sold 32 million units. Agents of Mayhem sold 300,000 units. So I announced in the transaction that they're now working on a full new production on a AAA title. Then they have Dambuster, the old Crytek UK, which also has a history back from the 90s with free radical design. They made Time Splitters. I would say if you're a gamer, you probably recognize that. And they made Crysis under EA and Crytek. I would say, it's a very, experienced studio. They made Homefront, and I would say Homefront is a good game today. The problem with Homefront, the revolution, was when it was released 2 years ago, it wasn't finished. Yeah? So the chain of command didn't work. They released an unfinished product, which I think is very important for us going forward. If Stefan tells me Biomutant is not finished, yeah, we will wait. Yeah? We need to deliver to the expectations of the consumers, and we need to take the investment doing that. This year they have communicated to the market they will release Metro. Metro is a license they own exclusively from the author, and there has been 2 Metro games before made by these 4A game studios that originates from Ukraine but also have on Malta. The previous games have sold now 12 million copies. That includes also very cheap copies on Steam and Humble Bundle. But I would say Metro Exodus looks it looks how should I state exciting, yeah. Great. And I'm looking forward to the teams to deliver on this. Yeah. Dead Island, again, it was a big success releasing back in the days. To be honest, they announced Dead Island 2 quite a few years ago, and the development of this has been, they had some issues, and they moved studio and so on. So, and what we are saying is that they have Dead Island 2 under development, and we have been looking through this, and Stefan and my other key people, and together with them, of course, we are confident they will be able to pull this off one day. Then the Saints Row, which is a major franchise. Before Wednesday, we didn't, Darksiders and Biomutant and a few others was our biggest titles, but this is a different league. Saints Row back in the days were perhaps the main competitor in a way to GTA, especially in America. It has a humor, it's violent, it's mature in a way, and has a huge fan base. bit on the failures, Agents of Mayhem I told you about. I also told you the home front. In total, the last 30 months they have made impairment test of 87 million euros. And then they have a stable pipeline for the future. This year, or actually the day before transaction, they released as a publisher, Deep Silver, the Kingdom Come Deliverance, developed by Warhorse in Czech, that the fans seems to be pleased with. And then they have Paris-Dakar this summer, and then they have this, again, if you're a gamer, you like the Shenmue. Back in the days, actually distributed Shenmue 2, I think, from Sega on Dreamcast in the Nordics. It's developed by, what I understand, partly the original creators in Tokyo. It was a good Kickstarter success, but obviously they need support to bring this out on the global scale. And it's coming out when it's done. And here is a bit on the partner publishing. I wouldn't say, you know, some people say they are distributors. Yeah? I would say they are much more than a distributor. They have a plate of services they provide the publishing partners. So the publishers could pick what countries in Europe, what services do they need marketing to B2B? Do they need marketing to consumers in the local areas? Do they need PR, strategic planning for product launch, development support, submissions, age ratings, events? They also make co-publishing, you know, deals for Europe, yeah? Bringing the whole process for the whole European market from development. They have a very long-standing relationship, yeah, and I'm very keen on keeping these good relationships and to be a very serious long-term partner to these people. Yeah. There will be no change. There will be no, you know, we'll just continue day by day to improve this going forward. I see the physical market as, you know, in the current generation stable. It has been growing a bit. Nintendo Switch are driving it. There is, you know, collector's editions. There is other things that you really can't download, such as accessories, merchandise. Well, you mentioned the Commodore 64. They have the global rights to sell Commodore 64 stick now in March. There is a huge pipeline of products. Don't get too excited, but it's a nice and stable, you know, business. So, well, each organization maintains a full operational focus, yeah, on executing. So in basis, THQ Nordic before Wednesday, they had a full pipeline. They know what they should do the next day and year, yeah? And the same for Deep Silver and the organization of Koch Media. So there were no reason to announce any restructuring, synergies, or anything. If everyone is doing what they should do, this will be okay, yeah. And then if we find synergies over time, it will become a bit better, yeah. That's the communication. So on the corporate level, as a public listed company, after discussions, especially with the companies here and also at the board level, because of the size of Koch Media, the name THQ Nordic as a public company is not, it's a bit so we decided to change the name, and that will be communicated and decided at the AGM 16th of May. But it won't be a name that we use to you know, consumers. So all brands stay the same within the organizations. Yeah. And, you know, I've been doing, you know, this acquisition now since 2011, and we stepped up a bit on the IPO. People asking us, you know, will we continue? Yeah, I want to continue. You know, I have my, you know, well, I'm not that young anymore, but I would say I enjoy doing business rather than investing, you know, into other businesses and building this. Yeah. So, you know, I think there is many opportunities, and I think we will stay within the video games, hardcore PC games, and perhaps one day we find some really talented, or a studio make some success in some other areas, and then we'll start learning from that. Yeah. So I could see deals on the mother company level that could strategically fit into this, but I think there is potential acquisitions within Koch Media Group, and as well as THQ Nordic in Vienna, for example. We do Experiment 101, or we made Black Forest and others. Yeah. So, and I really believe in you know, what are we actually building? You know, I think I really believe in, you know, having this, you know, content provider, you know, independent content provider to the platform holders. You know, I really think there is value of all the IPs and development capacity, and for new platform holders and our old friends that they want to onboard our content. And currently the platform holders are, okay, it's retail and those channels, but the consumer platform holders is mainly digital today, and it's Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo. Google entered 3 weeks ago with the streaming on Comcast. There will be new players, so who knows in 20 years what players there will be. Yeah? I think for us, if you're just focusing on what we're doing, it doesn't really matter so much. Yeah? I'm sure there will be consumers enjoying this fantastic, I don't like that word, these experiences that Stefan and all the others are creating. And yeah, I'm willing to pay for it. Yeah, well, there's some numbers here as well. I think Koch Media has you know, it's a solid business. You know, they made a good, you know, they have a good position. Yeah, they made the money. They didn't take out any really money over the years. They didn't take out any money before transaction, or neither did we. So we actually had more money the day after transaction than we had the day before. Yeah, so they have 800 million, I estimated, or we estimate on the group level, in available credit lines. And then we communicated, just because I didn't want to spend too much time with the Nordic banks' credit departments explaining this before. So we decided the terms will most likely be better if we can raise some debt on the mother company level after. So we are starting that process, you know, this spring. But that would be cheap, in my view. Long term, my expectation is to pay 1% to 2%. You know, no bond interest. Yeah, then I leave it. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. The banks is really starting to get flexible on new business model. Now LeoVegas got 2% for 100 million euro, and now you're saying 1% to 2%. So that's good thing to hear.
I learned a bit on the European banking market in this process. That was a good process. Yeah. I haven't told you what they're paying down there in the interest, yeah, but it's cheaper than here. Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of evaluating this acquisition, and I haven't written my review on it yet. It's a lot to dig into. But one thing to really lift the value of this acquisition is to lift Koch Media and THQ Nordic as a publisher and quality-wise, and we discussed it. What kind of processes will you implement in the production studios to assure the top-notch quality on every title that is going to hit the market?
I think it's a lot of common sense, yeah, and don't be stressed, yeah. And there are some easy decisions, yeah, to lower the business risk. One being Potentially to work on established IPs could be one thing to implement. One thing is obviously to have a stage gate process that they've already implemented. One thing could be that we are adding Stefan and various other people that have experiences of similar games and to have a different eyes, you know, how to make it. Yeah. To be honest, I have a good trust in already their ability on their own to do it. But obviously, this will be a key thing for going forward, not to repeat the same kind of mistakes. Yeah? We will make mistakes in the future. You know, don't take it for granted that everything we do will be good. Yeah. But
without mentioning any studio by name, but on the external side, the studios you use. Is it some studios that might be switched out for just to assure even higher quality in the future?
No, we're not changing business partner. But perhaps we're adding new ones. Yeah? And if they're finishing off their projects, we're making an evaluation. Okay, did they deliver cost-wise, quality-wise? Do they want to continue with us, or do they want to take some other China money or something else? You know, there's always a process. Yeah.
A large IP that follow along with this acquisition, Dead Island, it has been floating around in different studios, and now it's Sumo Digital, and it seems like they've been doing a lot of racing games, sports games. Are they the right one for Dead Island? In the long run?
I don't want to comment on each studios at all. Yeah, I think I fully trust Clemens and his team's choices to pick his partners.
Okay, questions from the audience?
Yes, I have one. Regarding the price tag. Didn't seem that they had a cash problem and the write-downs were non-cash, of course. Could you explain how come it seems to be a great deal for THQ?
No, I think it was it was a deal, a reasonable deal for both parties. You know, I think I try to value the downside rather than the upside. Yeah. So how much could I lose? That's a starting point. Then I think the owner that came from this small Alp village wanted to find a long-term serious owner, yeah, and I think we kind of agree that I trust his business. Yeah, I will continue running it, and it's a quite high percentage of the people living in this village or are working in this company. And I think potentially other owners would have made this restructurings and cuts and stuff. I don't know. I can't talk for others, but I think perhaps that was also part of the valuation.
Saints Row, a major IP. The last installment was in 2013. It was the same year as GTA 5 was released. Now it will take a couple of years before Saints Row 5 is out.
No, I haven't communicated Saints Row 5.
Okay. But yeah, I know you haven't communicated.
That's analyst.
Yeah. But I say it will take a couple of years before it's out. But do you think that GTA has gained some of the players that was Saints Row player? Is the fan base as
normally gamers, they play a lot of games,
yeah.
So obviously they don't play Saints Row on a daily basis as they play GTA. Yeah, GTA is a different league. Yeah, we are today is not comparable.
No, nothing is comparable to GTA, but.
So I don't know. I don't want to compare it with GTA. I was stating back in the days people were comparing it. If we are to make anything, I don't know. It's that's something for the future.
Yeah. And the final question for me is Höfen a nice Alp village? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Lars.
Yeah. Thank you.